Welcome, I'm Faye Waterman, and this is Talking All Things Business, and my guest today is Pat Grosse. And Pat is the founder of Community Entrepreneur, and she works with people and organizations who are entrepreneurial, and that's important for businesses and people in employment for 2021. And she wants to talk about the three fundamental changes that are happening in this, or that have happened in this period of time. Welcome, Pat, and thank you for your time.
Oh, thank you, Faye, for the opportunity.
Now, Pat, you said there were three fundamental changes that are happening. Can you explain to us what those changes are? And then let's go into a little bit of detail about each of them.
Okay, so when I'm talking about the three changes, I'm thinking of them in the context of how they're going to impact in the next 3, 5, 10, 20 years. So it's more to do with strategic thinking moving forward. And it's also a great opportunity to learn from history. And so the three things I was thinking right now is obvious. First one is obviously the impacts of pandemic.
Yes.
And we're going through the COVID-19 at the moment, and it just means the risk is always going to be there with, the superbugs in the future, etc. So it's always going to be a risk. So in a way, it's changing the workplace, for example. Here's that question. The question mark at the moment is, will people go back to working in those upright skyscraper structures, or does working from home mean there's an alternative and a different community-based structure? And I'm hearing at the moment that this whole thing about, well, we need to go back into these office environments because of that social connection that you have in the office environment. Well, I'm going, okay, but also there's change here. We're expecting to go back to what was, and history tells us that we can't do that. The invention of machinery, and you start up with a completely different employment pattern. And therefore, what is wrong with working more, not isolation, but working in more community, working in communities, working from home context? It just means that technology has become an influence. And that's the second influence, the second change. And this was always going to happen. We know that we talk about the AI, the advent of artificial intelligence and robots and taking over some of the jobs which are supposed to disappear in the next 5 or 10 years. So that was going to happen anyway. So we've got to think about, well, okay, so if technology is going to be a major influence in terms of, the corporates and the CBD structures, it's actually enhanced that thinking about, well, how can we use technology in a diverse community type based economy?
Yeah.
Now you were about to say something, Faye.
Yeah, and it gives employees the flexibility to be able to work from home, but also they can go into the workplace and do work some days and work from home others. And I think what business owners have learnt is that they actually can trust their employees to do the work from their home, regardless of, being in that environment of the tall buildings. And those tall buildings, I can see some of them turning into apartments because businesses are not going to take back those leases or whatever to put their employees in there when they can actually have them out in the community, have them at home working and having that flexibility and saving money so that they can use those dollars to build a business in a different way, a different structure.
And I'm also thinking in terms of that, the idea of if you're working from home, you tend to be more isolated. And that takes me back to, from my accent, I grew up in the north of England, and we, very, very sort of the culture was working men's clubs. Now, I'm not saying we're going to start up working men's clubs. I'm talking about there was a community-based social infrastructure. There was a solution to the issues of the day. So I'm just going, well, okay, so is there an opportunity here now for communities to step up and include more facilities in the community for that social interaction that could replace what may happen by the divestment from the CBD tower approach.
Yeah.
Now, I'm just putting these out there. I'm not saying this is going to happen, but it's got to start. You have to start thinking about, well, what does this mean? And I don't mean in a panic way. I think the blue sky thinking.
Yes.
Because change happens no matter what, and it's how we respond to that change. And that change could be for the better. We just don't know what it is.
And I think we've got to be open, take off those blinkers, look outside the square or the box, as you refer to it, to see the opportunities that can be created and developed within communities, to create those working spaces within the community where they have the hot desks that you can go into when you need to, but there is that community feel so that people can connect still when they're working from home. I mean, I work from home. I love working from home, and I don't want to go and work in a big office area. It's not what I like doing. But those people that have been used to, and the younger people that have been used to going to work and working in those big spaces, and then there are businesses that have been working in those spaces, but had hot desks, created hot desks. So nobody has a real desk to go to every day. It's just potluck. Why not have a look at the diversity that you're talking about within the community sectors and create an environment where people can still connect, but still work in isolation when they need to? It's a fabulous idea. Fabulous. I like the way you're thinking.
And it's likely to be, look, it's something that was probably going to happen, and it might have been a greater shock, as I say, because of the rise of technology and the rate of increase. Artificial intelligence and, you know, replacing jobs, etc. So I think we're in a whole new world, but not for the worse, not for the fear, but for, well, where's this going to look? What's it going to look like? And what does it mean for the business?
I think the change is for the greater good, not just for businesses, but for everyone involved. And I think that it will bring communities closer together. They will look at the structure of their community and where they live and what they do and how they do business. So it's changing that mindset. It's having that flexibility and also giving that trust and that responsibility to the workers within a business to take on and say, okay, I have the responsibility for this now. I will do my work and still have that flexibility to be able to pick my children up, drop them off at school, and not have to race to the office, which takes time. So they have that extra bit of time to be able to do that work and do it in a better mindset, because they don't have someone breathing down their neck, or they don't have all this chatter or this disruption that they have when they're in a bigger environment.
Now, the third change that's impacting Australia in particular is changing climate conditions.
Okay, and what does it mean?
Alongside growth, you know, we've got there's more communities, more housing, more industry out in those areas than there were, you know, years ago. And if you end up, you know, the exodus to the regions, that the whole concept there of going out and you know, working from home, etc. So you can have communities growing, but then you've also got to be mindful of the risks associated with changes in climate conditions. At the moment, we've got, you know, the bushfire risk or the flood risk. I mean, Australia just is the extremes, but it's happening all over the world.
Yes.
So it's there, it's change, it's happening all the time. So whatever changes we make, we have got to, I mean, they're just three factors. There are other factors to bring in as well, but it just changes. Yeah, it's fluid. But what I did a quick exercise using a tool, Michael Porter's 5 Forces for businesses, the framework of 5 influences.
Okay.
And I just did it quickly. For instance, suppliers.
Right.
And look, it works because I remember, the 1990s when just in time was, the new concept basically. And warehouses were, you didn't need to have the great big warehouses anymore because the supply systems were such that you could just order your goods just in time. Retailers, they moved from having the same clothing for, weeks and weeks and weeks to being able to have a constant turnover of clothing and fashion.
Because they didn't have to hold it in stock.
Because they didn't have, so that's when the whole supply chain had radical change. What we've got at the moment is this radical change in terms of technology because we've got online, supplying online, drop shipping, for example. So you don't need to have a warehouse. You can just bring it in from an external warehouse somewhere else.
Yes.
So, these are just examples of the supply as to think about, well, what about suppliers? The second there is the customers. And, like customers, the whole thing, they move from being seen as, we just sell to you to how now to market, to being marketed to being that relationship development. And now technology has moved it so that we're talking about the customers building those relationships online with customers and the strategies associated. But it's becoming more and more sophisticated. And customers, they've been not more demanding, but more focused in what they want. So that's had an impact again on businesses and how they're interacting with customers. And how will that change in the future? Competitors, gone were the days when you could actually, check out your competitors in the local, the Yellow Pages directories and places like that. Or they tended to be local or in the same country or something like that, and then we grew to the international markets. And now the competitors, it's a crowded marketplace. We have to be different. We have to show how we can stand out from the crowd.
Having uniqueness.
So technology is definitely in there. So we're looking, there's that whole area of competitors. Then we're talking about new entrants into the market, and because of displacement of jobs, there's this whole economy of people wanting to start their own businesses, and what support they can be given, and how that's going to change in the future as well. So things to think about. And then the fifth area of Michael Porter's 5 Forces is this substitute. If they're not buying whatever it is from you, what else are they doing? So a good example is if they're not going to a night class, it's because they're out there with their children playing, supporting their children with sport. So, I just started to think about that, and I'm thinking, this has got implications for strategy.
Yeah, and this is where I'm going to change the conversation a little bit, because what you do, Pat, and you've just proven it with the conversation that you've just had there, is how your mind works and how you look at business and how you can help people with the strategies and the marketing tools and the negotiations and lots of other things. You can go into a business and you can actually audit it and see where the gaps are and help people in business close those gaps or change them for the better. Now, you come from a community side of things. You even do the grant side of things as well. You have a program where you can teach people how to write grants. You have a program which is online where they can learn on their own to do the grants themselves. But you also have this ability to really hone in on a business and really find out what the missing links are and how you can restructure those things to build the business and make it better.
Okay, so look, the whole idea of grants, this is, like 30 years experience, both sides of the fence, etc. But it's actually a way to step into the doorway of the organization, because the bigger the grant, the more it actually unpacks how an organization works. So there is a very strategic approach, and it's not just about one grant. It might be a whole framework of how do you get the funds to achieve an outcome.
Yes.
And at the moment, I'm working with businesses to actually, again, going back to what I was saying about, how, well, COVID and technology are the two links here, who are looking at either relocating their businesses or bringing their businesses back onshore.
Yes.
So, and then matching them what they want to do with government strategy, because policy direction is what influences where the money flows.
Yeah.
So, and again, it's about talking to the right people, making the right connections, and helping businesses to get from A to B.
And also, it's really important that Australia looks at what they're doing now in business and manufacturing and all that sort of thing, bring it back into Australia. RM Williams has brought their business back into Australia, which is a really fantastic thing to see happen. That will create more jobs, it will give more opportunities. And
it's a side effect of technology, because the initial thinking is technology is going to replace jobs, but it depends where those jobs are to start with. Yeah. So technology is actually going to reduce costs, which helps to bring the jobs back on shore.
Yeah, and also technology. There needs to be people that maintain that technological side of things. There needs to be people in the background to manage all this. So it's not all going to be remote, whatever. There are going to be the needs of human beings to do some of the work and all the rest of it, so that you
technology creates jobs.
Yeah.
And technology creates jobs.
And it's really, really interesting that we don't look at it like that. We look at it as losing jobs when it actually does create them. I remember when they said computers, when we first brought computers in, it will save paper and it will save trees. Rubbish. I use paper just the same as I do, because sometimes I like that touchy feel of the paper and I don't want to look at the screen all the time when I'm working on a project or something like that. I know businesses that don't use paper, they just use technology all the time. But yeah, technology is just part and parcel of what businesses are all about. It's not that they're going to make jobs obsolete at all.
It changes jobs. It changes the jobs employment ecosystem.
Yeah.
Some lose and you gain over here.
Yeah. So I think we have to have an open mind to look at what the fundamental changes. I mean, you've mentioned 3, but there are many more fundamental changes that will happen and continue to happen. We will never go back to where we were at the beginning of 2020. Things have changed, and they've changed for the better or not in certain circumstances.
Well, look, the way I'm seeing it at the moment is now is a good time to revisit your strategy.
Yes.
And if you don't have one, you should. And you're looking.
It's a must.
You must, yes. And you're looking in the next 3 to 5 year timeline framework. And I'm saying, 12 months just means a short term hop from here, one island to the other, not the actual destination. And I'm saying that, sorry, I've lost myself there for a minute. Your destination, your vision will always be the same, because that's the result that you're looking for.
Yeah.
But your strategy will change. And usually when I do strategic planning and with my clients, I build in not just the 12-month, but the 18-month review, just to make sure, because things are fluid and you do have to make changes. But this year, 2021 onwards, is definitely the time to actually look at your strategy and to massage it so that you do achieve what you want to achieve at the end of the, in your vision.
And it's really important that you know what your strategy is. You can't fly blind with that. And this brings me to another point before we close. Pat, you are going to be running a workshop, a 3-hour workshop on December the 10th for people to attend, to learn more about strategy, to learn more about grants, excuse me, and other things, so that they can get the idea of what, excuse me, get the idea of what you can actually do to help them in business. So how can they get in contact with you, Pat, to find out more about what you do and how you can help them?
Okay, well, you can email me directly on pat@thecommunityentrepreneur.com.
Right.
And if you have trouble spelling community entrepreneur, and even I do, because I tend to automatically spell it different, I have a second email, which is patricia.grosse@bigpond.com. Thank God I kept my Big Pond account.
And any other? On Facebook, on LinkedIn?
Yeah, Pat Grosse is on Facebook. Try not to contact me on Patricia Grosse, because that's my personal Facebook account and I tend to use that for friends. But certainly Pat Grosse, she can contact me on that, and I'm also on LinkedIn.
Beautiful.
And my experience on strategy is probably not just any other person. I remember back in when I was doing my degree, we had a group. We were doing corporate strategy, so I've actually done it, in university. And we had a sort of a project, and it was based on the #1 shopping chain in the UK at the time, and what would you do to move forward, blah, blah, blah. And we were sort of, again, being that forward thinking, put in that they should actually look at buying a DIY chain. We put the report in on the Friday, and the following Wednesday, the top supermarket chain announced that they were actually buying the DIY chain. So that got me interested. I followed strategy because I used to work for an organisation that actually worked within the context of the European Union and how that worked. And so I've got some amazing insights into how countries work.
I know you do. I know you do.
And I've followed that through ever since. Even, as I said, people know me for the grant writing side of it, but even that is a strategic approach if you do it properly.
Yes, yes. Thank you, Pat. You're a wealth of knowledge, and it's always wonderful to talk to you. Until next time, I'm Faye Waterman. This is Talking All Things Business. And if you want to get in contact with Pat, just have a look for Pat Grosse, community entrepreneur, and you will find her. Send her a message. She is running a workshop on the 10th of December. It will be well worth attending.